Welcome to the Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Helinski. Glad you could join us here today. Have a terrific guest for us today. This gentleman going at 2025 Tonawanda Hall of Fame inductee, the one and the only Travis Charsley. Travis, how are you?
Good, very good. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining me here today. First of all, congratulations on being inducted into the Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame. Actually, it's going to happen in a couple of months. We're taping this at the end of June of 2025. But let me ask you, I'll go right out of the box with this. What were your thoughts when you found out that you were selected?
You know, it was cool. It's cool to be recognized because, growing up, the NT football program was always just something you wanted to be a part of. And to excel at it and to be honored to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is just really cool. Join some of the other greats that I played with and even before me. It's just cool.
Tell us about your background. What part of NT you grew up in? When you kept playing football as a youth, were you a sandlot kid, or were you in the organized leagues?
I was an organized guy. I was a hybrid. I grew up over end of Zimmerman by Wright Avenue, kind of by Spruce School area. Uh, we played football every day we could before school, after school, during the summer. Um, I remember a buddy of mine. I went to his house in third grade, and I seen he had some football pads, shoulder pads. I'm like, man, that's cool, And I went home and asked my parents if I could play football, and they said, yeah, So third grade, my parents signed me up at NTA, and I started on the Timberwolves. And from third grade to my senior year, I played football, and we still played backyard football and stuff too, organized and backyard. And it was awesome. And where I grew up had a ton of kids. Uh, a lot of them played, football with us in NTA. Luke Zacher, he's one of the kids from my neighborhood over on Rumbled. Um, he was on the state team with us too. And trying to think who else was in my neck of the woods that joined the organized side, but a lot of my neighborhood was ice hockey. And, I went the other way and played football.
Now, did you play uh, freshman football and then work your way up to JV or varsity, or how did that work out for you?
So I played NTA from third to let's see here, seventh grade. And then my eighth grade year, I decided to play modified. And that's when I started playing for the school. And I had Pat Kennedy as my coach. So I'm playing modified, and he's like, man, you're a pretty good ball player. And, they wanted me to play freshman as an eighth grader. And I was a little scared. I didn't want to go. I was playing with my buddies on modified. And so I declined that and stayed on modified. But the following year, my freshman year, I tried out for JV, and I made JV, and I started as a middle linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah. And
How
from
was that season for you?
that was probably one of my better seasons that I really started turning the corner, I'd say. Because I mean, once you make JV, you're kind of practicing with the varsity guys. You're doing individuals. You're with the varsity linebackers. You're taking a knee, listening to Jancy talk. Like, it's a big step. And it was it. I excelled at JV. And at the end of that year, there was a couple of us that were called up to varsity because Jance used to do that with the young bucks. He'd be like, all right, JV season's over. your guys are going to come up to varsity. They still had like a game or two left, and we would practice with the varsity team then. We were the look team, but just for the experience, and it it's it's good for you, just to see what it's all about.
When you got called up to varsity, were you a little bit in awe about
Yeah,
playing with some of these guys who were juniors and seniors?
it was crazy because there were some guys that were in my neighborhood. Like Ryan Hawkins was a good football player, and he was a senior when I was a freshman, and then getting called up to play with those guys, it's like, oh man, dude, he's been really good, so now we're playing at this level now as a freshman, and it's like, all right, strap your helmet up, let's go, and it's looking back, it's crazy. It was fun. But as when you get called up as a freshman, you're more or less just kind of getting acquainted with how it is. Okay. Like what goes to what. You start at individuals, then you go to team, and just look team defense, and then the coaching, what coaches do what on varsity. You got your special teams division, you got your defense, your offense, and in individuals, like linebackers would go here, running backs here, cornerbacks over here. Every position had their own coach that was dedicated to that craft to show the kids what to do and the proper technique.
Was it overwhelming at times?
um it was a little nerve wracking. I remember being like, oh man, I hope I don't get laid out, or, you just think like that when you're getting called up. But it was a little overwhelming, especially because on the board, there'd be like red team, blue team, white team. And then when we get called up, there's like gold, silver, bronze. And you got to remember that stuff, what look team you're on, because when they call it, and if you don't go out there, and you're not called, you're probably going to end up running. So, you got to be paying attention too.
Was there a lot of hitting back then during the season, during the week?
Oh yeah, we practiced like we played. We were hitting each other hard, and that's the way I always looked at it. I practice how I played. I'm not trying to, dance around and practice. I'm playing because I want to get used to playing like that. You don't want to just play soft in practice because that carries over. You want to have a hard, intense practice, and that's what the coaches wanted too.
The next year, I assume you went up to varsity because you played varsity from 2008 to 2010. So, what was that experience when you were a sophomore?
It was something. A couple of us went out, um, and Joey and I were the only sophomores to make it varsity.
Joey Montesani?
Joey Montesani, still a great buddy of mine. We actually just golfed yesterday. Um, we made the team. He at the time was a cornerback, and I was strictly defense. I was a linebacker, middle linebacker. And, my coach was Rick Tom. He was the linebacker coach. He was the defensive coordinator, and you couldn't have asked for a better guy. He was with you all the way. He wanted you to succeed. And I actually got my foot in the door. I was switching in and out that year, every other drive with a senior. We had Cujo was starting a middle linebacker, and there was another kid, Joe Gravino, and me and him were switching on and off um, every other drive. And so I played a lot my sophomore year and learned a ton, from those older guys and Coach Tom and just everybody.
How organized was Coach Yancey with
Oh,
his program?
he ran a program like it was something else. Like two lines, you walk in, two lines out, two lines in. You take a knee, you listen. I mean, he had things down. All of those coaches working up from modified. We were running, the triple option and buck trap and all this. We ran that all the way up from modified in middle school going up, and it's just they were all on the same page. And once you got to varsity, you just Jancy had it down. He
Were you a big guy into to lifting as well too?
Oh yeah, I was walking from the middle school in 8th grade in the off season. I would walk from Resel to the high school, and I was working out there in 8th grade. Me and a couple guys would be like, "Yeah, let's go." We wanted to be on varsity. We wanted to. The program, like I said, when I was going to school with Jancy, was just like it was something to be a part of. NTAA even they're like, "Hey, the Jacks are playing tonight. If you can get up there," and my dad would take me to games. Me and a buddy of mine or something. He did, yeah, well, it's great football for a cheap price and it's your home team. So as a young kid, you're watching and it's like, man, I want to be out there. You know what I mean?
I mean, was it your dream at that point when your father was taking you to the games that you were thinking one day I'm going to get on that field?
I knew that I was going to stick with football. I knew that. I loved the game. Um, I loved NT football. And the Tonawanda News, like, you know, they had all that stuff in the paper too. Like this area, just they loved it, and it was really cool. And it was something that a lot of kids my age wanted to be a part of.
Okay, let's fast forward to your junior year, which was the state championship game season in 2009. There's been talk and some suggestion. Your quarterback Mike Tuzo was a little bit boastful about talking about how you guys were going to win the state championship, and I don't know what the feeling was with the coaches and the players in the locker room, but when you heard stuff like that, what went through your mind, or what was the feeling by the players and yourself?
You know what? That going into that year, I think we all kind of had a feeling. That whole group of guys, we were all playing football together since 3rd grade. All those group of guys that stuck with it. So we've been playing together for, you know, 10 years or whatever. It's just like, so we're here, we're working hard. We're there at 5 in the morning doing agility training. We're playing morning basketball, 5 in the morning before school, showering at the school, then going to class. We worked hard for it. And going into that junior year, we had talent. Bloomfield came back out of the woodwork. I had played when I first started, I played with Bloomfield in NTAA. This is 3rd grade. Bloomfield's running for 1,000 yards in NTAA. You know what I mean? And it's just like, man, this kid was good. And he stopped for a while and he came back. We had another guy, Tom Sell, who came back and played. And these are ball players, tough kids. And even that whole 2009 team, every single person on that team, whether it's, even if they just played special teams or they didn't play at all, they were in practice busting their butt. And that's tough. These kids are just out there and they wanted to be a part of it too. And just going into that 2009 season doubles, how hard we were all working, you know, we were practicing on like a dirt field behind Meadow and hotter than heck. We're just, we're hitting each other hard. And these practices would get heated sometimes against the defense and the offense. The fights had to be broken up, stuff like that. But it was just the intensity of it all. And, at the end of the day, the coaches loved it. At the end of the day, when we're out of practice, we all love each other. But sometimes when you're going head to head, things get heated. You were holding me. No, I wasn't. All right. And then the next play, you're smashing helmets.
What were the Indiana camps like at that point, those days?
Oh, Indiana. I went to the one Indiana camp. And it was tough, man. 3 practices a day. It was like 100 degrees. It rained the one day, and we're like, yes. And that rain let up, and it was the steamiest, most humid practice. We were all dying out there. But I'll tell you what, I look back at Indiana, and that was one of the best football camps I ever went to. You're practicing with teams from all over the place, and the intensity was high there. And we were very good up there too. So we were kind of like, we're a good team. We're playing these other kids. We're competing. We're scoring. We're beating them. And it's Indiana option camp. We were calling it the devil's bedroom. Like we'd get back to our rooms and we'd be turning the AC on. My one buddy, Ryan Dagler, actually had pneumonia after we came back from there because he was sleeping right in front of the air conditioner. I think that's what gave it to him. It's just blowing on his head all night because it was just so hot.
When did you move over to become tight end? What year did you become a tight end?
That was 2009. I remember we were like walking out, and Chance is like, "You're playing tight end this year." I'm like, "What? No, I'm a defensive guy." He's like, "Nah, you're playing tight end." And I was like, "All right, I was down. Tight end's a cool position, get on the offense." And then that causes a stir with my defensive teammates, because it was like a rivalry with Jancy and Tom too, in practice. So I'd have to bring out like whatever offense had the red pennies, defense had the blue. So the days I was on offense, man, you were hearing chirping from my defensive guys. Oh yeah, you trading sides. It's like, hey, there was a couple of us who were playing both ways. So when that happened, you still had some of the starters on defense, Dan Monasani, Ryan Dagler, a couple of these other guys on the D line, where who switched to offense? Joey started playing running back that year, Monasani, his junior year. Then we got Casey Shreve switched over to the O line as a tackle. So I was playing next to him, depending on which side of the ball I was on. A couple of us switched over. But when Jan said I was playing tight end, I was like, all right, geez, both ways, let's go. It was cool to be, asked to play that position and not like try out or anything.
You had some success during the sectional and the state championship game, but I want to back up to the regular season. Were you utilized a lot as a tight end during the regular season?
As far as the passing game, I'd run some routes. I was mainly a blocker a lot of times. We were running Okie Teal and stuff, and like you get some big guys like that, like me in there. For like Okie Teal, my job was to crash down and take out that middle linebacker and let that running back run off my butt. Just, and we were just, you were just hitting each other. It was kind of being like an offensive lineman. I had to start doing Jancy's individuals for offensive line. And it was pretty tough, man. He had us squatting down and holding that for the pass blocking and stuff, man. And you were feeling that in your legs. You know what I mean? He, it was really, it was just wild to just switch positions because I've always played defense. And then to play a position where I could possibly catch the ball was cool too.
Now, when you get to the sectional play, you had success against Baldwinsville and then against New Rochelle in the state championship, but they were throwing you the ball. And a different wrinkle that probably the other teams did not see on film, so they didn't know how to defend it. How did that come about with Coach Yancey adding you into the offense?
Well, he had a couple things. He was running a screen, and we were this tight end screen. He kind of got involved, and that led to a couple of other routes. And I was a pretty fast kid, and I had some good hands. So, it started. It's funny. It's Lockport, Jancy, and Cook. I'd probably say Cook was kind of like the OC up in the box, letting Jancy know what he's seeing and stuff. And halftime comes, and Jancy draws this play up. I still remember the play, 44-47 backside. And he draws it up and he looks at me. He's like, Charles, you should be wide open. Okay. I'm like, all right, so we come out of halftime, we're running a few plays. And Tuzo comes running out with the play and he looks at me. He's like 44-47 backside. I'm like, okay. And this was a post flag. Before this play, my job was to run the post, and that safety kept biting on that, right? So that's what they were seeing. So Jan says, you know what, we're going to run the post flag, fake that post, and then cut back out. I'm like, all right. And I did that, and I just looked back, and Tuzo had that ball slinging, and I caught it over the shoulder and took it like 40-some yards for a touchdown. And from that point, I think Jance was like, all right, now we got a new weapon in our arsenal.
Did he show that very often later on? He showed it at Baldwinsville, and he showed it in the Dome. I mean, you scored the first touchdown of that championship game.
Right. Yeah. When he called that in the state championship, I knew that there was a strong possibility that ball could be coming to me. Tom Selwyn that ran that wheel route too, and he was quick. So it could go that way too, depending on what Tuzo's seen. But I was taken off and just kind of skirted by this linebacker. He kind of grabbed my jersey, pulled it off, and I kind of pumped inside and came back. And I was just standing there, not a guy within 15 yards of me. And Tuz just let it go. And I remember it just coming to me, and I just caught it and looking down. I kind of backed up and turned, and I was going over the goal line. I was just like, holy cow, we just got one here, It was
What is that feeling like scoring a touchdown in the state championship game?
Oh man, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had so much adrenaline pumping through my body. My buddies, still razz me. They're like, "What are you, a wrestler?" I kind of stomped my foot in the end zone. I was just pumped, And it's funny. I handle one of my customers is Mr. Davis, and he got my number. He says, "Hey, I just watching you doing the stomp after you scored that touchdown," and I just had to laugh. I'm like, dude, I didn't know what to do. I was just overcome with just, I can't even explain it. It was really cool to be able to say that you scored a touchdown in the state championship is cool, especially for a program like North Tonawanda.
But defensively, you were playing against a pretty good New Rochelle team. They were highly ranked in the state. You guys knocked out their starting quarterback early in the game, and a lot of people argue that made a difference, but they didn't give up whatsoever. They were a hard-nosed team, and they didn't let you run away with it in any way, shape, or form. They made a game of it most of the game until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, those kids were tough. They were built, they were big kids. That's a big school, so you got a lot of kids to pick from too. So, you know, but we were tough too. We were in the weight room. We were working out, and we're just this small town compared to like New York City. So, um, I mean, they were just tough kids. I, that backup quarterback that came in, he was no slouch though. Even he was like 6'5" or something. That kid, but that quarterback we took out also, he was. I remember Coach Tom. We're watching film. This guy runs a 4.2, 4.2. You better take your angles right. He's just in our head, and we're like, okay, we got to focus, stick to your position. And you know what? Everybody on our team trusted each other, right, to do their own job, and that was huge too. You know, so when you're playing against a team like New Rochelle, they lost their quarterback, but they had a stud running back. Their offensive line probably averaged 250 pounds. You're trying to blitz on those guys, man. They're beating you up. And we just played good defense. We were disciplined. We didn't really let them do anything.
Do you recall, was there a lot of chirping going on during that
Oh,
game?
there was always chirping going on, yelling back and forth, tackling somebody, stay down, and they dished it back too, that was all through playoffs, man. There were always some chirping going on, but you had to be careful too. You didn't want to be going too wild and have a ref give you a warning or something.
Did any of those teams that year intimidate you in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think we were ever intimidated. I think we knew how good we were, and we were out there. We all just wanted to take someone's head off and win football games. That's, I was never really intimidating. There were some times I took some shots and was like, oh man, uh, I remember Baldwinsville, I was on a blitz and I tried like just jumping over an offensive line's leg, and another guy was right there and just slammed me right on my back. And it's just, Baldwinsville had a big offensive line. I remember that about them. And, you know, when you're blitzing the A gap, it's like, okay, you got the guard and the center, and these guys are some big boys. So, I mean, you're just running in there as fast as you can and lowering your shoulder.
Come the fourth quarter of that championship game, were you still feeling it that you guys were going to win?
We were just doing the best we could to, keep the lead, just play smart football, read your keys, don't let up any big plays. And we did a great job. Every single person on that team you know. And you look even at the special teams in that state championship game. Uh, a standout guy that I always thought was phenomenal was Steve Stefanski on the football field. When he'd come in for me when I needed a blow because I was playing both ways and sometimes kickoff was tough. And he'd come in and he would fly down the field and he'd hit these guys hard. He'd find his way through there. He wanted it. And he took full advantage of every time he stepped on the field.
What was it feeling like when Montesani was throwing that halfback pass to for the touchdown?
I mean, Bloomfield mossed that guy. I mean, Joey threw it up and, you know, Bloom just jumped and just took it right out of his hands. I couldn't believe that. Once you're up, up on these guys, it's the fourth quarter. It's like, oh man, Bloomfield catching that ball is one of the craziest plays I've ever seen with my own eyes. Just being there watching it, being on the field, it's just wild that like Joey just rolling out. And that was a play we had in our arsenal. We didn't run it often, but it was one of our trick plays and two of our best players involved on it. You can't go wrong running it.
When the clock's winding down and you hear the NT crowd cranking it up and cheering, what do you remember about those last few minutes at the Dome?
I remember looking around, just like the NT fan base that rolled with us. It was something I'll never forget. You're playing at the Carrier Dome. You're in the locker rooms getting changed, sitting there. It was just a very cool experience being in a place like this. These lockers, and it was something I can't even explain. And with the fans and looking around, and McDonough swatting that ball down, at the end of the game, that almost pretty much sealed it. It was just like, did we really just do this? Did we really just have the perfect season? 13-0. Unbelievable. Just wild.
Did you guys even shower after the game, or just take your gear off, get dressed, and get on the bus?
I think that's what we did. We just were like, let's go, and when we got on the bus and it was getting late when we were coming home and coming into NT. The bus drivers must have been in communication with the NTPD. We're coming over the Twin City Bridge and two cops roll out with their lights on in front of us, and we had some in the back, and they escorted us down Twin City right back to the high school. It was cool, and all the parents and fans are at the school waiting for us. It was just, that movie Friday Night Lights come out when we were younger, and we were all watching that. It's like Texas state championship. It's like, you get that dream in your head, and two's saying, we're going to win the state championship. We've all seen that movie and we'd watch it, and to actually do it was just at the highest level in New York State is just, it's an honor to be a part of a team like that.
Looking back, do you have any regrets about that season? Or something where you would have said, I wish we should have, could have, would have, or I could have, should have, could have, would have, or was that just the perfect season for you as well?
Perfect season for me as well, man. To do it with the coaches we had, the guys we were with, it's something that will just keep with us forever, man. I don't think there's one thing I could look back and say we should have done differently. Jancy was a phenomenal coach. Coach Tom was a phenomenal coach. Every one of our coaches were awesome. They worked with us. They dedicated so much of their time away from their families to help us become the men we are today. I still take a lot of the discipline that they taught us there and apply it to life today. I'm grateful for that.
What type of lessons did you take from them and doing today?
One, I remember Coach Tom always saying, no excuses. He'd ask, what happened here? Well, hey, no excuses. All right. I gotta be better. I got to make that play, and that was part of it. The mindset, like, this is on you. This was your job that you let up, right? Take some accountability. Don't point fingers. Take accountability and be a team player, never put another player down, bring them up, you know, stuff like that. It's just, a never giving up attitude, just little things.
How competitive was it with the backups wanting to get playing time? Were you looking over your shoulder saying, I better not screw up, or they've got somebody waiting for me?
I never thought of it like that because every single one of us worked our butt off. But our guys that were on the bench, they were ready to go at all times and they knew what they had to do. And they were tough kids. Let me tell you, when we had look team, there's times that they were getting the better of our starting offense. And these are the backups. Like, these guys were ready to go. Look at Tom Sell. Aaron Davis got hurt. Tom Sell comes in. The kid was faster than anybody ever thought. He wasn't a big guy. He reversed a toss against Webster Schroeder and took it for like 45 yards. It's like, who reverses a toss? But these kids, everybody was just ready to go. Anytime if somebody were to get hurt, we had a guy ready to go, and a good player too. It wasn't like a scrub or anybody bad. Everybody on that team was good.
What was it like the post celebration after the game and the few weeks after that? I'm sure that you took a bus trip to the state capitol and was honored by the New York State Legislature and all the other stuff that went on with that.
Very cool. Just cool experiences. Everybody in NT loved it. Um, it was just it was just so cool to be a part of it, a part of everything, the celebrations, you know, the ring sizing, the ring ceremony at the Riviera Theater, being honored with their rings. Rick Winter, he made these rings for us, and our names are on them with our number, with a red stone on it. It just, you know, playing for NT, it was just everybody in town just was proud of us kids, and it felt good knowing that we were on that team. And when you go around town, people kind of knew who you were, and it was just, I loved every minute of it.
I want to fast forward to your senior year. Did you guys have the same swagger or the same thought that let's repeat again, let's repeat and win a state championship? Or what was the aura at that point?
We came out, we lost so many good players, but we came out, we wanted to repeat. I mean, but come on, a 13-0 season with a state title. I mean, that's hard to replicate. But we came out, I think week one, we lost to Ken West. That beat us up a little bit. I had dropped a touchdown Joey threw to me in the end zone. A guy jumped in front of me, and I was looking in the light, and and we lost that game. But we came back. I think we had 6 wins my senior year. But we played like hell still. We busted our butts. We didn't do what we wanted to do, but we still gave it our all. And, we had our coaches with us, and that truly is just a once in a lifetime experience, what we had accomplished our junior year. Going to my, our senior year, we were so good. Joey had switched to quarterback. We lost Tuzo. Tuzo was a well-oiled machine. He had played quarterback his whole life. He was playing quarterback in 3rd grade all the way up. He knew everything. He probably still knows every play.
You could probably rattle off a lot of the plays too, can't you? Still,
I could. I'd have to go back. Okie Teal.
We're talking 16 years, but I'm sure you probably while you're asleep, that some of the stuff comes pouring through your brain.
It's funny. Coach Tom used to make us. I called the plays on defense, so I had a wristband, right, with plays on it. I still have every one he made for my junior year down in my basement in a box. They're laminated. I'd slide them in every play from nickel, base, wizard, uh, goal line, every play on there. I have every one of them still. And you know what's crazy? You say 16 years. I'm 32 years old. That was half a lifetime ago for me at this point now, which is just wild to think about, you know?
Hey, I want to talk about your TNT experiences and what TNT meant to you. I mean, I know you guys played TNT Tonawanda, and several of those games were rather lopsided victories by you guys.
Yeah. Um, we were fortunate enough to play in the 100th TNT game too, you know? That was wild. We had like 10,000 people at the stadium in NT. And we always were beating up on Tonawanda. It was a good rivalry, and we knew some of the kids from Tonawanda. So, I mean, it was all good. Uh, we were just getting the better of them during, our my couple years playing. I never lost to Tonawanda, uh, thankfully. Senior year, I got the MVP of the TNT game. That was what, 2010 there. So, playing Tonawanda was always super fun, especially when the Tonawanda news was out. They'd send out the paper with, the starting players and like rundowns on everybody and through the years. I mean, there's been over 100 games at this point. It's a cool rivalry.
Should that rivalry continue?
I believe so. Uh, it's just something to look back on. It's something to be a part of, whether you win or lose. I think it's important to keep rivalries like that, in my opinion. Tonawanda versus North Tonawanda, it's been going on forever. And now North Tonawanda isn't class double A anymore either, you know. So the the battlefield's kind of leveling out. Tonawanda won a few years back, I believe. I don't know what happened last year. I think Tonawanda beat us a couple years ago, maybe a couple times in a row. I'd have to look at the stats there, but I think you should keep it.
How many looks did you get for college for football, or was that part of your life equation after high school?
Well, I could have went and played. I remember Jancy telling me, "Oh, if you could play college, you should play tight end." I remember that. And I didn't really want to go to college, didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of made decisions too late on maybe like the Montesanis decided they were going to Cortland, right? Uh, Last minute, I was like, what am I doing? I should go play. And I wanted to do that. And it was a little too late. So that's kind of where I left off. I could have went somewhere and played, but you know what? Uh, I loved all my years playing. Like I said, I played from third grade to my senior year. It was an awesome time. I loved every minute of it. But I ended up, I didn't even go to college. I started working with my dad,
Mhm.
owned a small heating and cooling business. And here I am today. I'm still doing that.
How hard was it to take off the helmet and the shoulder pads and put them away?
It was tough the first couple years, I mean, I love doing it, walking out and just the feeling of just a good hard day's practice. You wake up, you're beat, you're sore, but you start moving again and you feel better. Um, I missed it. I still look back and think, that was just an awesome time, especially in high school when you're playing with your best friends and you're out there on a Friday night under the lights, you're in the huddle, you're winning a game, it's the fourth quarter, and then you guys are just kind of having some fun out there. Coach Tom, you guys are up enough, time's winding down, he's letting you call your own plays. And I was always blitzing the house if I was calling my own plays because I just, everybody wanted to get after the quarterback or make a play. And I'd send the house. I love doing stunts and stuff
How
like that.
often did he allow that to happen? And what was his signal? Did he just like throw up his hands and 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 just say it's up to you or what?
Yeah, it was like it would be towards the end of the game. It wasn't often if they were close, but if we go, Charles, what you think? Make your call out there. And if we were running base, that's what we would run a majority of the time. If we had a heavy passing team, we'd run some nickel. You got an extra DB out there and stuff. But as far as base, man, I'd run avalanche, blizzard, and that's determining if it's the Mike or the Will. I'd be running some crossing stunts on the outside. That's the stuff I like to do. And everybody wanted to do it. I said, okay, now who wants the blitz? Oh yeah, let's go.
I've never heard that where they turn the reins over, but that is really cool to hear that. The NT program has suffered the last 10 years or so. I mean, I think that's a fair way to describe it. How bothersome is that to you to see the program take a little bit trend in the wrong direction?
It stinks, because as far back as I can remember when I was a kid, NT football was just it was NT football. It was something to be a part of. It was tough. Now not as many kids I feel are playing, and you know what? If they're not starting, they're like, well, I'm not playing, maybe, and that's kind of the wrong attitude to have to look at it because you can work your way up, you can prove yourself. And that's how the coaches are. If they see, wow, this kid's working his butt off, he deserves some playing time. And it's all about hard work. And that's what we all did. Um, it's hard to say what the real problem is. I wish it was still just at the level it was. I should make it to more football games. Um, once the season comes around, the new stadium, I've been there once. Uh, they honored us maybe after 10 years or something. I forget. But we were out on that new field, but it's turf and stuff now. I always like playing on the grass. I didn't like the turf. Halftime, I remember on the turf, we'd all be taking our cleats off, pouring the beads out, the little rubber pellets. We're playing on grass, you'd get muddy. And then at the end of the game, you see, one of your buddies. It's like, hey, were you even playing? Did you make any tackles? You're a little too clean.
But you talk about today's players. What pieces of advice would you give them?
Stick with it, work hard, work out, listen to your coaches. You'll learn a lot. Um, it's all about mastering your craft. We used to watch a lot of film, and every coach knew what their position had to do. Like I said, individuals. And if you listen and pay attention, you're going to be a good football player. Just stick with it and work hard, pay attention. It's really something to be a part of, a football team.
Hall of Fame's coming up. What's going through your mind? Do you get emotional thinking about it?
A little bit, a little nervous. Uh, it's it's going to be fun because there's McClincy's going in. I played with him in '08, so I haven't seen him probably since he graduated. I probably haven't seen him since '08. So that's going to be super fun to see him there. See what he's been up to, how his life's turned out. Woodard, he was a few years younger than me, but he was a heck of an athlete, that kid. It's going to be fun to get inducted with that group of guys. You'll be there. Jance is going to be there. I'm getting excited for it, especially that Jance is going to be there. I haven't seen him in forever. It'll be fun because he was always he liked to, try to get under your skin, and he was a great coach and a good guy. But he always was he's kind of a funny wise guy type coach, but super awesome.
Do you have an idea what his speech is going to be like? Because he seemed to be a man of few words when it comes to public speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, he was kind of, but he was short and to the point. And we knew like when he meant it and when he didn't, or when he was happy or when we knew we needed to step it up. So His speech, if I had to guess, it will be short and sweet and to the point. That's just Jance. That's all I know how he is. Rick Tom, on the other hand, he could get a little crazy if he wants.
I mean, a little wordy, a
Yeah,
little.
oh yeah, he'd get in there. Dave Celeste, awesome. Loved him as a coach. Wanted to be like him playing football in NT. And he was a little different because, our other coaches were teachers and he wasn't a teacher. He'd come in there, okay, let's go. We're gonna wreck these guys, and he'd be getting us pumped up too, because he played college ball at Ithaca and he knew what it was all about. But Jance, he was more, punctual. Like, this is the game plan. This is what we're going to do. We're going to stick to it. We're going to run it down their throat. Rick, what do you have to say? And Rick would do a little more talking. And then Zayats would come in. And then once the coaches were gone, that's when Celeste would come in, start hitting everybody's helmet, going wild.
Besides Celeste, what other coaches that you had were very influential in your football career at NT?
Rick Tom kind of took me under his wing uh, as a young guy. I remember modified when I was playing there. I was playing fullback too on modified, and we used to, the locker room was like in the basement. And I remember Pat Kenny was like, Charles, come here. I want you to meet, I think JV was practicing over there or something at the time. Or Rick Tom was over there and he's like, let's see your muscle. And I pull it up. He feels it. He's like, oh, you got some work to do. And it was just like, okay, who's this guy? This is Rick Tom. So fast forward to my freshman year, I'm playing linebacker, right? So, okay, and it's funny. I actually went to the wrong individual station. I went to the cornerbacks. I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go. And Todd O'Brien looks at me. He's like, Charles, you're in the wrong spot over here. So I run over to Coach Tom and I was already, late there. So it's like, oh, okay, here we go. And after, starting there, Coach Tom kind of took me under his wing. Um, I'd even, certain games, I would leave my lunch period a little early and we would go watch some film and go over stuff, formations, whether it's pistol or offset eye, like being able to decipher what's going on. So sitting there with him and his knowledge, you're like, how does he know all this stuff? Getting to my senior year after all those years, everything's finally starting to kind of click linebacker wise. And you can probably see it through the film through the years. Just front step forward, watch your guards. You see that guard start pulling, that's where the ball's going. So as soon as you learn, listen, these are my read keys. This is what I have to do. This guy's going here. And that was all from Coach Tom. Taking the time to sit there with me to teach me that stuff. I look back and that was awesome. How many people do stuff like that?
Knowing what you know now, or knowing what you knew then, do you have any aspirations to coach yourself?
When Rick took over, he asked me if I could coach with him. And at the time, I was working with my dad. I was kind of an apprentice trying to learn that craft to make a living. So there's no way I wanted to. I just wasn't able to make the time at that point to get there at like 3 o'clock every day. But I would love to coach someday. I think that would be a super cool experience. I'd love to give the knowledge I have to these younger kids and help some of these younger kids because all of these coaches, football, some of these kids maybe had some problems growing up, but when you came into football, that was kind of a family and every coach was there for you. So I'd like to help some kids that maybe need it in the future and, coach and win some football games or something.
You're away on vacation with your wife and you meet some people, and you start talking about where you're from and maybe talking about high school football. What are you telling these people about North Tonawanda and playing football for the North Tonawanda program?
I tell them there's a lot of pride there. Dedication, perseverance, if you come to NT, you'll see. You driving in, every part of the town says 2009 state championships. It's still NT is still kind of people. Oh, you hear from them. Oh yeah, what happened? They used to be a good program. Well, they're down right now, but they'll come back. I think so. They got a good coaching staff over there now, so hopefully they can turn some things around.
We've talked about a lot of things so far. What would you like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
We covered a lot of the bases here. Trying to think. We talked state championship play. I mean, the playoff runs were cool. Driving out to Rochester, we'd be on the buses.
You played on the soccer field at Rochester.
Yeah, you know, it, we were getting changed in like a little trailer that was set up. I mean, just a lot of the players, kids who didn't play would, spaghetti dinners. Let me tell you, that was awesome. A little thing we used to do. We would tell the newcomers, the kids that just made varsity, hey, spaghetti dinner tonight. This was our little hazing thing. It wasn't anything crazy. We'd say, hey, spaghetti dinner tonight, be there right after practice, 5 o'clock or whatever, shirt and tie. So
you made them show up at the Hall of Fame in their shirt and tie?
Yeah, we'd all be in there. They'd show up in a shirt and tie. Oh God, it's like welcome to varsity, kid. Come have a seat. Well, the one kid, Brendan Wingrove, shows up, shirt and tie. He's just shaking his head. That state championship year, he showed up the rest of the year in a shirt and tie because he did not want to rock the cart. It was super from week 1 to week 13, shirt and tie, dressed up every spaghetti dinner. He was the only one. But I remember when I was on varsity as a sophomore going to my first spaghetti dinner, I had a good friend of mine who was on the team, and he shouldn't have told me, but he told me not to wear the shirt and tie. But I thought that was always a fun little thing we did for everybody, and people look back and just laugh about it. It was really fun.
When we one final question for this, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
When you guys get together, that championship, that 2009 team, have the stories gotten better over the years?
Yeah. Yeah, the stories just get better and better. And, we still like to rag on each other just as hard. Hey, remember when you jumped off sides there on 4th and 1? Oh, geez, don't remind me of that, just stuff like that. But, I mean, the stories are still just phenomenal. Looking back, just awesome.
Travis Charsley, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. We'll catch up with you in a couple months at the Hall of Fame, September 5th and September 6th.
Yes, sir.
Should be a lot of fun. It should be a great night as well, too, at Rescue and the night before at the football stadium with everybody being introduced. And I wish you well, you and your family. And once again, thanks so much.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you there.